Hi, everyone. Today we're going to hear Rhonda and Debbie Boone tell us about NAAVR, the North American Association of Veterinary Receptionists. This is a new group they've created to support the front desk folks at veterinary practices. Let's hear what they have to say. Hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton. Welcome to my podcast, Why Do Pets Matter? 10 years ago, with my iPhone and a script, I recorded the first episode of the Ultimate Pet Resolution Summit, which chatted with experts about conflicts over animals. Our conversations were intimate, honest, and illustrated how disagreements over animals occur and how those disagreements can reshape people's lives and relationships. In November 2019, I started Why Do Pets Matter, a new podcast that continued these informative discussions. I'm so excited to have you here with me, continuing my exploration into a more meaningful conversation about why pets matter to all of us. My guests and I will share ideas, stories, and experiences straight from the heart, unscripted and holistic. From the bravest moments to the most brokenhearted, we will explore how to resolve disagreements over animals differently. One thing I know for sure is I want to have more meaningful conversations that will help all of us unlock that deeply felt human-animal bond that drives the emotions of conflict. Hi, everyone. Deborah Hamilton, and I am back again with my two wonderful friends, Rhonda and Debbie Boone. And today we're going to talk about, of course, the first question, why do pets matter? But also about a new adventure and venture that Debbie and Rhonda are starting, which I think is phenomenal. So before we get into it, Rhonda, tell me why pets matter to you again.
Oh my goodness. I think from my perspective, being a sick person, just that bond and that connection and just that unconditional love that is just soothing and supportive, just that deep bond that you get from them.
It's so important. I know. I love it. And Deb, why are pets important to you, especially since I helped you find your new pet?
You did. And you are also my map person. So if something happens to me, you're going to take care of him if I become disabled or if I die. So we have a plan for Tucker. But no, he is just so much fun, right? I mean, he is just joy. And sometimes he's a pain in the neck, like when he pees in the floor. But you know what? We're getting through that. He also gets me
a little
moving.
dog thing. I'm
telling you.
It's a little dog thing.
Yeah. But it gets me moving. You know, that's the other thing too, I think is really important because I am, as Rhonda knows, pretty obsessed with what I do for a living. And I feel like if Tucker didn't look at me a couple of times a day and go, okay, we got to go, that I would probably just sit here at this desk all day long. So he keeps me active and moving. I have met so many of my neighbors because he is extremely social and he is just positive that everybody loves him. So, and they do, which is fun. So yeah, I think he's also helped me, meet all the people in my neighborhood.
I know, Deb, it's so important to get up and walk around. Rhonda, tell us again, in just short snippet, what it is that you do that really is in service to people and people with animals.
I work with people within the veterinary industry. I am a brand consultant. So I teach them how to promote their businesses and their brands online. Teach them social media, teach them digital marketing, all of the ins and outs that go along with that. And I help guide them through some of the noise that is found on the internet, and primarily with veterinary folks.
Wonderful. And your company is Dog Days, right?
Yeah, Dog Days Consulting. So I formed my company during the dog days of my career shift. So that's how it got named that.
I love it. You know, we all have these impactful things that cause us to do things. Hey, Deb, tell us what it is that you do, because you're doing so many things. You have a new book, but you also do a lot of consulting.
I do. Yeah. So right now I'm doing some workshops based on my book called Hospitality and Healthcare. I've done some speaking both in veterinary medicine and on the human side based on that book. I am really excited about working with new veterinary entrepreneurs because they are, I have 6 startup veterinary hospitals that I'm working with right now. And it is so much fun because they want to learn and they are so excited and they listen well. And we're not overcoming challenges, stuff that they've had to, we're not trying to
Years of
fix.
entrenched habit. Years of
Yes, we are
entrenched habit.
not fixing bad habits. We are just moving forward with, on the right path. And that is a great. And then, of course, there is volunteer work because I have done a lot of stuff in the past with the vet partners as the board president, past president, and board member. And now Rhonda and I are, with the help of Dr. Jill Clark, creating another nonprofit association called NAAVR that is for veterinary CSRs.
So that's what I want to delve into today, because it really is something that people probably have never realized, but the front desk people, the customer relations people, which is what CSR stands for, right? Customer service. They are the front line of your veterinary practice. And those are the ones that have almost the longest impact on clients. So both of you have decided to create a group that will help these wonderful front desk people create the atmosphere in your practice. So tell us more. Deb, you started, so continue. And then Rhonda, I need to hear what you're doing for this practice as well, because you're in the trenches as well.
Well, the whole idea started with Dr. Jill Clark, who messaged me out of the blue one day and said, I am teaching CSRs for this class that I have online. And every time they finish the class, they're like, okay, now what's the next thing? We want some more. And I feel like they need to have an association, somebody that represents them. And I went, that's just a really great idea. She said, and I think you're the person who needs to help me do it. And I went, okay, that's a great idea. Now, I laugh and say, if I had known the amount of work that it was going to take to do this, I might not have thought it was a great idea, but it has been a lot of fun and a lot of work to do it. So as Jill and I started to work, and we were about 2 or 3 months into this project, and we realized that we had to have an association platform, and there was going to have to be social media stuff, and there was going to be a lot of detailed marketing that needed to be done. I went, you know what? I think I have the perfect person. So Rhonda laughingly says, I voluntold her that I was going to loop her into this thing, but I gave her the option. She didn't have to do it. And I said, Rhonda, you're an advocate for CSRs, just like Jill and I think we need to do this. And she went, oh, Deb, I like that idea. Now, she didn't know what she was getting into either. But it's all working out. I told her last week, I said, Rhonda, I am so smart. And she said, what? I said, because I talked you into doing this and we desperately needed you. So I am so smart that I did this.
Even if you say so yourself.
So, yeah. So Rhonda, tell us a little bit more, because I know you from a personal level as well, because you have created such wonderful work for my practice as well in the last 3 or 4 months. And the thing that I know Debbie is talking about, the two Debbies, we're good friends, and Rhonda's a very good friend now to both of us, is that she is the organizational guru. Without her, all of our good ideas would remain on the pad of paper that we thought about, as opposed to having structure and being implemented. So Rhonda, tell us about this voluntold, because I know that is actually what happened. And Debbie is very good at voluntolding people.
Yeah, she's delusional. So yeah, she, way back whenever I did a podcast with her for her podcast, the Bend, we actually talked about it briefly. I think that was the first time we actually had the conversation where I have a passion for what goes on in the front side of the practice. It's the revenue threshold. Like, if we don't nurture that and support that gateway into the practice, well, we are never going to be successful. Like, every effort we put into it, every dime we spend on marketing and everything else can be literally killed by one bad CSR. That truly is your secret weapon to success in the veterinary industry. And we've talked about it over and over, because I'm a CVPM also. So I've got that client service, that team building, the whole dynamic, as well as she. So my other bend is that I love technology, and I have, over the years, learned to build websites, and I do a lot in the digital space. Obviously, I've got a couple of certifications in that, and I apply it towards veterinary medicine and marketing and that sort of thing. So when she asked me to come on board, I was actually quite excited. I did not have a concept of scope, just as no one really did. We just knew that this was really cool. It was really needed, but we didn't quite understand how wanted it would actually be. You know, needed and wanted, two different things. As we're building this, I mean, I am probably chest deep now at this point in this website build. It is extremely complicated, extremely, like, it's the biggest challenge I think I've undertaken to date. So I'm learning a lot, and just going through the process together of building this with Jill has been quite remarkable. And the team, our initial board, is quite amazing if you think about it. We're, 3 driver women, right? So automatically you think there's going to be some major drama from the get-go, but we automatically just fell into our little columns and we ran with our strengths. And I think that was the blessing of having so much training and time in the seat in management and just skills development and understanding. We just self-assessed and figured out what our lane is. And we just run, and we're accomplishing a lot in a very short period of time. And the industry support that we have been given has just been, I think, what really blew our minds. So, an example is Fetch coming up. Like, they gave us a track. I mean, just, when do you just walk off, out the front door and be like, here, have your very own track at a major conference. There you go. We're like, and that just came from one conversation. We've got some major sponsors that are coming on board, dropping some serious dollars to support the CSRs, like the non-decision makers in the practice, but the people that are supporting our organization recognize that they're the gateway. If you want to get to the decision makers, if you want to get your products in front of people, if you want to get that buy-in, you got to talk to the CSRs.
Or if you want a thoughtful gatekeeper, you need a thoughtful gatekeeper, because people can be gatekeepers who turn people away.
Absolutely.
That's like the kiss of death to a vet practice. So tell me a little bit more about when you realized that this was really wanted, as opposed to all of you knowing it was absolutely needed, and you're building, you're building the airplane while you're flying it. And when did you realize that, oh my God, this is something that people actually agree is needed and are going to buy into?
Well, as a social media expert, I did something really dumb.
We all remember this Tuesday night.
Yeah.
We do, because Rhonda made a post and said, oh, I'm so excited about having this association that we're building, and it's going to be great, and we have this great team. And then I saw it and I piggybacked on it, and I said, oh yeah, we really are building this great thing. And I put it on LinkedIn, and we put it out to, the 22,000 people that follow me. And then Jill piggybacked on that. And all of a sudden it was like, oh my word, we got so much response.
We got hammered.
We did. And we all looked at each other and went, we can't do this anymore. We can't talk about it. We're not ready. We're not ready. But I think just on my LinkedIn, I had something like 2,000 people say, post, link on it or like it. I had over 100 people comment on it, and then 45 or 50 people shared it. So it went out into the universe. And then Rhonda had like an equal response on hers, and Jill did too. So we were like, and people were like, how can we help? This is great.
But there was no backing out then.
Oh, well, we're in it. We are in it.
We made the decision, or I made the decision to sprinkle it in, because we really thought this was going to be a tougher sell. We're like, we have to, the barrier to entry for this organization is only $25 for CSRs. We thought we were going to fight just to get enough CSRs just to cover the first year's expenses. Like, how are we going to do this? Like, we were really worried. And as I was building this, I was having that moment then, what a blessing this is to actually be able to serve in this way, to serve the industry in this way, to finally support a segment of our industry in a meaningful way. And that's the moment, that's the headspace I was in when I shared it on LinkedIn. It struck me as how blessed I was. And that's where it just kind of blew up, and we had to start a wait list. We had to hurry up and get the website, the domains. I mean, we had no idea. I thought we were fighting for $25. I didn't know we were going to have to fight them off. So it was just like, oh my God, what happened? I thought of all the things, all the content I've ever made in my career, like that.
That's the one.
Was the response from CSRs who were supporting what you were putting out there, or was it a response across the board from veterinarians who needed help with their CSRs, from vet techs and others who work with CSRs? Who was it that was really blowing up your practice? I mean, your posts.
It was everybody. It was people from industry. It was, managers. It was technicians. It was people who are regional supervisors for corporates. It was everybody who was like, oh my gosh, we need this. We desperately need this. And it was, I mean, for us, it was such an affirmation that what we were doing and putting in all these hours, and believe me, we have all this effort, personal money to be able to start this thing, that people wanted it, that we were on the right track. And so now the effort we make is even more so confirmed that, we're getting there, and we're getting there pretty fast. As Rhonda said, it's moving fast. I mean, we were delusional because we thought we might could have this done by AVMA, and which would have been 2 months. And then as we got into it, especially as Rhonda started getting into the association management platform, and we realized how complex this is. I mean, it's not just, do you want to get some members? We're talking about maintaining continuing education credit hours. We're talking about limiting the membership to CSRs and having a different affiliate members for people like you and me and Rhonda who don't work in practice every day. We want to really protect those CSRs and their community. And that's just, scratching the surface of where we're going with this thing.
Yeah,
Well,
I was describing to them that basically every sentence on a website has a button I have to click. And it's just incredible the amount of detail that's going into this.
which is going to be really important in the process of it. So right now there's no other group for CSRs out there. So there's no group supporting CSRs. At the beginning of this podcast, Why Do Pets Matter? Because the first person you see that matters to the pet and the client is the CSR. So you've created this group that's going to enable CSRs to become almost a part of a profession's go-to practice.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing. We're creating a certification for them to create or make a professional CSR. So that's exactly where we're headed. And the response that we got, you were asking that question a moment ago, doctors, everyone was, what can we do to help? What can we do to help? The overall tone from the CSRs was, we've been waiting a really long time. We're so thankful someone is doing this. No one had one voice that was big enough, strong enough, whatever, to be able to build this on their own. So the three of us uniting our voices to support the CSRs, I've got nothing but thank you. I've been waiting my whole career for this. So that was enough for me. I'm like, okay, I'll just keep clicking the buttons and we'll just keep working. We meet every week. Like, we spend hours on this every week and just continuing to move it forward.
Your purpose is to create what? I think I know, but define it for me, because in the vet practice, there's the veterinarians, the owners, the veterinarians who aren't owners, who are associates. There are vet techs, there are vet support staff, and then there's the front desk people who are a little bit different, but no less necessary, and actually, in my practice, usually are the front line to client interactions.
I equivalent, if you think about, playing golf, the front desk is the tee. So when you are teeing off on the first hole, you put that tee in the ground so that you hit a good shot. And if you don't hit the tee shot well, then the rest of the game is not played well. And so if you think about, everybody has a purpose, it's just like every single club in the bag has a purpose, but that first encounter with the client, and Deb, you've been a client for a long time. You're a dog breeder. You are in depth with, conflict management with owners and veterinarians. And that CSR can either make or break the tone of the visit. It can be either a collaboration that people feel welcomed and greeted and, kind of, I got your back and we're going to walk you through this process. Or it can be that hand in the face that said our policy is, and that's inappropriate. So we want to make sure that we have a place where CSRs can go and learn accurate skills that make them the golf tee rather than duffing it when they start. So we want to, kind of vet education. We won't be a learning management system. There are plenty good ones out there. But the problem, and Ron and I and Jill, we've all talked about this, is they're scattered to the wind. And CSRs, unlike CVPMs like Ron and I, they don't spend their lives digging around in education, trying to find this stuff. So we want to make a place that's easy to find it. And then they can get free classes, because there are a lot of good free classes that are out there in the world they just don't know about. And then we will vet those things, because we laughingly say we want nobody with shoulder pads and big 80s hair teaching a 2024 CSR how to manage the front desk. This is about current. How do you do it now? And, there's a lot of technology involved in the front desk. There's a lot of, they usually are the people who are answering emails and answering text messages. Are they answering those appropriately? Do you even know that? Are you listening to what they're saying to people? I always think about my first phone call with Jill, when she worked for VCA. She was building a learning platform called WolfU that was going to be a training platform for the CSRs in this huge corporate group. So she asked the managers in that community to send her the top CSRs they had. I want to hear the best of the best. And they sent her 1,200 people, and she started listening to recorded phone calls that these folks had with clients. And she said, Debbie, honestly, I went home every night and cried, because I heard them turn away animals that I knew were going to die because they didn't know, they weren't trained. Animals that had parvo, I heard them, give advice that was inappropriate over the phone. Why? Because they hadn't been trained and they didn't know. And she said, from that point on, I knew that this was going to be an important role. And the other thing she said, I'm a veterinarian, and I always looked at that job as a temp job. Like it was just somebody who was trying to get their foot in the door so they could get to the back. And in my practice, my CSRs worked the front desk, and they were there for 20 years, 30 years, because they loved it, they were empowered, and they were educated. And I knew the value of that, because they were the relationship builders with my clients. I mean, clients came to us when they got divorced, when people died, when their children were acting up. And we were the sounding board. We listened to, it was more than just the pet. We listened to it all, and we were there for people for all of it.
So they were like the buffer.
Yeah.
Because if you, I really appreciate that she got 12,000 recommendations on great CSRs, and she listened to them and went home and cried, because really that has been my experience. It's sort of left to the Wild West, and I really appreciate that some people consider it a temp job. So there are some really great CSRs who are really backing you guys 100%. And I'm sure some of them have said to you, because I get this when I speak to groups that comprise CSRs and vet techs and things. How do you get the veterinarian, who might be old school, to buy in that there is value in supporting the education of a CSR? And then when they bring back these great ideas, which a lot of mine did from, like they do from, your programs, and they want to implement it, and the vet says, yeah, no.
So that's where we're spending a lot of our think tank space right now. One, providing that education. A lot of veterinarians, and my previous owners were no exception, didn't want the front office teams to really know much about medicine, because they didn't want them practicing medicine over the phone. Well, they are, and they will. So we have to make sure that the quality of the education that they are spewing out to your clients is sound and is quality, because they will. In the absence of an answer, they will create one.
especially a 20-year CSR, right? Because she's
Mhm.
been there long
Absolutely.
enough
They
that she
know enough
knows
to be dangerous.
to be
Absolutely.
dangerous. Yes,
Same,
absolutely.
Yeah.
same for me. I know enough to be just dangerous enough. The other side of it is whenever I have that conversation with the practice owners, I tackle it from a logistical standpoint or a marketing standpoint. If we consider the client's journey with our veterinary practice and where they make decisions and where their decisions may be changed going forward in that entire journey. So when you actually, I outline the client journey, bullet point by bullet point by bullet point. And then I take an average of how many the CSR actually has a say or an impact. The bulk of the touch points in that relationship are CSR driven. So the veterinarian has very little to do with that relationship. The technician has very little to do with it. It's the CSR that drives that and that has most of that contact. So why wouldn't we pour into that segment, even from a selfish standpoint of just making our businesses better? You know, not to mention the fact that we're just going to make this industry incredible. But if you only had to latch onto one main point, it's just going to make your business better. Why wouldn't you do it?
Right. I mean, it's the old Jerry Maguire adage, you had me at hello. If you don't have me at hello, then no matter how good the vet techs are or the veterinarian is, I know from my experience looking for a new vet when I came to North Carolina, no eye contact by the CSRs up front. Well, they don't care about me, and I'm sure
Mhm.
they don't not care about me. I just think that that wasn't part of the discipline, that wasn't part of the environment, that wasn't made important. And I think what I'm hearing both of you say is, hey, let's take a step back and look at not the 12,000 that the veterinarians necessarily think are the best front desk people, but get input from clients on who is the best CSR in the front, because then you want to clone those, because whatever they're doing is something that creates brand loyalty.
Well,
Yeah.
people who make eye contact are the ones who are confident and who have dealt with or who have healthy coping mechanisms for their imposter syndrome. Everyone has imposter syndrome. So these people have found ways of learning past that. And how do you make someone confident, or how do you encourage confidence? By pouring into them and giving them things to be confident about. So education and knowledge, you can't ever take that away. So if you want the eye contact, you want the confidence and stature, you want the smiles, and you want that ability to defend that estimate, give them the educational background to know how to do it. We
Oh,
want to
that's a
give
big
them a
piece.
centralized hub for them to go learn those
Yeah.
skills, as well as have that forum where they can problem solve together as a brain trust, where they don't need to go ask somebody, their betters permission of how they need to think about something. Go formulate that opinion on your own. And as a segment in this industry, drive yourselves to the right answer. We just want to give them the platform to be able to do that.
Give them
One
the
other one other thing we're doing, Deb, is I have had some conversations with Sherry Gilmartin from VetSource, because VetSource is our inchworm, right? They measure everything for us. So we believe so strongly that all ships rise when you work with the front desk and train them appropriately, that we are going to take some measurements, and we have a corporate group that's going to help us. We've already had a conversation, and we're going to say, okay, here's where we are, baseline. And then we're going to have these people join NAAVR. We want to watch their progress, look at their continuing education, and then measure again 6 months to a year later and see, has forward booking improved, has compliance improved, have our Google reviews improved, have our conflicts within the business diminished, because we know that with training, all that happens. Rhonda made this point about confidence. And when I was managing hospitals, my CSRs were trained on medicine. They could identify the anatomy of the ear, the foot, the rear. They also knew all the components of a vaccine, the symptoms of all those diseases. They knew the life cycle of heartworms and fleas, and how the modalities of the drugs that we used worked and why they were important. And they got a test on all those things. And they got a test on Gold Star customer service, and they got a test on the employee manual because nobody ever reads it. And they got a test on common telephone questions and the appropriate answers based on what our doctors wanted them to respond to. And when they passed all those tests, they got $1 an hour raise. And that was in 2002. And so when you think about $1 an hour raise in 2002, it's a significant amount of money. And every single one of those developed so much confidence that when a client had any kind of question, they didn't feel pressured to go run and find a technician or go and run and find a doctor, or they didn't vacillate. And the clients immediately thought, oh, these people know what they're talking about. And we preached the gospel of our hospital from the front to the tech to the doctor and back out the front door again in one consistent message that everybody had been trained on. And our compliance rate was 87% on all remindable services. And it broke the benchmark at that point in time. So that's actually how I got started as a speaker. Novartis said, can you go teach other people how to do that? And I went, yeah, I think I can. And I've been doing it ever since. But it is the CSRs who support the message of the medicine, or they tear it down.
Or they tear it down if there's any falter whatsoever, any moment of panic that they don't have an answer and they feel cornered by that client will not associate that falter with, oh, they aren't confident in how to tell me. They're thinking they don't believe in the medicine. So that translational issue
that
is
siding
a
with
problem.
the client on, wow, this is expensive. I know it's expensive. It's a collaborative conversation, right? Because you want to empathize with them that, yeah, it's really expensive. However, they don't have the ability to then enable the transparency of, it is expensive. And I know that Dr. Smith, or whatever the next statement is that the practice needs to share with the client, would come from the CSR, who's empathizing with the fact that, yes, vet care is expensive, and not because but will always turn people off. My thought listening to you guys, this is fabulous for CSRs. I'm so thrilled. And how do we get the veterinarians and the vet techs to shift some of their paradigm on, once you train, once they leave the farm and go to Paris, right? Once you train a CSR and they know what they're doing, veterinarians are going to really love this until the CSR might say, well, why do we do it this way or that way? How are you going to help veterinarians to also be brought along, and vet techs to also be brought along to support the value of the CSR?
I hope they do that. I hope they annoy the crud out of people. I hope that they remove that phrase from our thought process of, well, because we've always done it this way. Like, this is exactly how, if you've got all of these thought leaders all working in tandem within your practice, how much power are you actually harnessing in your practice, as opposed to only one person is allowed to think and only one person is allowed to decide. So if you've got all of these people seeking out more greatness and bringing it back to the practice, then one, you're not going to have a hiring issue. You're not going to ever be able to get rid of people. Like, they're all going to stay, and you're going to have stability within your practice just for that alone, because people are looking for that innovative thinker, that innovative owner who is going to allow people to grow and develop. And like she said, it's going to make everything rise together. So that's absolutely what we hope to happen. Although it will make some people uncomfortable. What kind of practice owner do you want to be?
Right.
Well,
and
supporting change is hard for everybody.
Supporting the practice owner in the shift, because and the veterinarians in the shift, because especially like Deb said, she's working with 6 practices now. They're brand new, clean slate, no history, no habits, fabulous. And you're going to get CSRs that are in practice 5-10 years. It's been not necessarily supportive. They're going to bring back all this great information. The vet's going to really think, oh, this is good, until this is, the conflict I always deal with. Something triggers them that you're necessarily usurping something that's my lane, and don't usurp what's my lane. And in the training, I'm sure you're going to cover this. So what happens when you get pushback?
Well, it's just communication, right? And I think that what we will show is this makes life better for everybody. So if you think about, I start that client visit out in a very positive note. that client is moving through that customer journey, just like Rhonda said, and they have started out with a positive feeling. And unless somebody breaks it down, they're going to maintain that. And that means that my life as a technician is easier. My life as a veterinarian is easier. And then when they leave, my life as a CSR is easier because everybody's communicating well. And we can show that. We can prove it. We can show it. And personally, I've lived it, so I know that it happens. The doctors get home on time. Why? Because they don't have to answer every single question that comes in the door. Other people are trained and capable of doing that. And the client satisfaction is improved too. We look at some of the human medicine studies, and if we just teach people how to appropriately respond to people, don't have to send them through 5 layers of voicemail, which aggravates the world, and they get a response that makes sense and works for them and answers the problem that they're trying to solve right at the front desk, then life is good, right? Everybody's happy. I mean, I know that you as a client, we've talked about your struggles trying to find a veterinarian when you moved, and getting somebody who will listen to the fact that you're an eligible person. And I ran into the same problem because I'm like Rhonda, we are all extremely knowledgeable in the care of animals. And when we go into a practice and they don't pick up on a cue that says, I know what fear-free is, and I'm asking you, are you fear-free certified? And you look at me like I have 2 heads. That's not instilling confidence in me when I walk in the door. If I'm asking you questions about, blood work and things like that, if I know what, a CBC is, then maybe you should pick up on that cue and go, oh, you actually know what you're talking about. And I've dealt with this in human medicine. I've dealt with it, for myself, and I'm sure Rhonda has too. Rhonda's just dealing with something with her mother-in-law, and she is the person who is now the point person for the medicine. Why? Because she knows, and other people don't. We need to teach our people to be really confident in their medical knowledge, because our clients are going to expect that of them, and they're going to be aggravated if they feel like they are clueless. I know clueless people bother me, and I am patient, but aggravated still, right?
Well, and they're handing off their pet to someone that they've already, in the first 10 seconds, have formed an opinion of, I don't trust you.
Yeah.
But I've got to hand off this innocent being that you could hurt or injure and can't defend itself against you. And as a pet owner, I have to be okay with that. Well, I'm not okay with that. So, the ultimate goal is patient outcome. We want compliance. We want better patient outcomes. We want better surgical outcomes. We want happier, healthier pets. We want longer lives, and that's really, really what it boils down to. And every segment in our industry needs to have a place where they can grow one another and help and push and at least speak. And right now, the CSRs all operate in a vacuum. And
yeah, they kind of get what I always like to call the tail end of a lunch and learn. Like the drug reps will come in and talk about some new product, and they go, oh, by the way, when they call and ask about this at the front desk, you can say A, B, and C. And that's really not what they need to hear. The funny thing is, we are all, because we are all communication experts, the 3 of us in this group, we feel like the CSRs should want to learn conflict resolution and communication skills and a proper answering the phone. But the funny thing is, they think they're okay at that. You don't know what you don't know. What they want to learn is how to make a Facebook post and how to manage reminder systems, because these are all the ancillary jobs that they get, tossed their way. So that's fine. We can teach them those kind of things too. We can make those things appropriately available to them. And with all things communication, I'm sure every one of us on this discussion has struggled with people who think they don't need us, and they desperately do, because there's a lack of self-awareness of how good you are at certain skills. And we tend to think that we are good communicators. We tend to think that people, we can be nice and we can nice our way out of situations, but nice is not the key. You can be extremely nice and absolutely clueless and still piss me off. As long as you are competent and kind, then that's great, but you got to be competent. And I think that's what we're trying to build, is a level of competency here that is advanced over what people typically think a CSR should and could do, because like I said, I've lived this. I know what CSRs are capable of doing, and it takes such a burden off of the medical team when you teach them appropriately. And as Rhonda said, they are practicing medicine. Do you want them to practice the way you want to practice medicine, or do you want to practice Tractor Supply or Walmart or whatever practice medicine? Because they will pick somebody to listen to, and hopefully it's going to be you.
What I'm hearing you both say, which is really important, is that what NAAVR is going to do is create a structure where consistency and communication and just the ability to respond in a way that is correct in the moment, whether it is to show that I'm competent in understanding what you may want and what you may need, or wow, this is something I really think the vet tech should come out and take care of, or the vet should take care of, knowing that difference, and creating the information so that the CSRs can speak up and say, really, I do want to do this. I'm really not good at this, and I'd like some either training on it, or maybe I know my magnificence, because we all on this call have spoken to each other about what we're really magnificent at and what we suck at. And so we find people to do what it is we already know we're not good at. And that doesn't mean the CSR should be fired because she's not good at this or that, or he, but that we really help people be the best they can be. And that comes with client input as well. So in the final sort of moments that we have here, how is this going to also, you said you were going to take a bead on the training, say 6 months a year after, on what the response is from clients today, and then what's the response from clients 6 months from now, a year from now. What are you also putting in place? Because I know you're probably doing that to enable input from clients for these new CSR practices.
That's a really good question. And the challenge is for us is the audience. I mean, we have an audience that typically is in veterinary medicine, our CSRs, we're getting input from them. But I think probably our best bet is to start to look at what are the common complaints of clients, and then how can we fix that. A couple of years ago, I spoke at AHA, and I threw out to the managers, give me the reasons you're firing clients. And so all these, responses came in, and I think total there was like 18. But when I kind of pared it down, the two that were COVID related were, I don't want to wear a mask and I want to come in the building, which they were not allowed to do. But everything else was the same thing that we had been firing clients about for 25 years that I managed. And it really came down to lack of communication about money, lack of communication, talking over people's heads, being what there was a perception of rudeness or I don't care from the client. And so we know what the problems are. There's nothing new under the sun. All we have to do is build appropriate responses and awareness of what those things are and how to stop them before we exacerbate them. Because I really do believe my talk I gave at AVMA this past year was called Terrible Clients, Toxic Team, a Cause and Effect, or a Mirror. And sometimes it is a mirror, because we are putting out an energy that causes our clients to react badly in defense of themselves when we don't even know we're doing it. And that, again, going back to the self-awareness, what are you saying to set people off? Let's not say that anymore. Through training, we can learn what things set people off and avoid that, or learn a skill set that tells people how I can gracefully say, this is our policy, without them feeling like I've stuck a hand in their face, and I can still offer help. I can't do this, but I can do this. I can't do this. And we have available to us these things. So I'm going to help you one way or the other. I am here for you.
And not being afraid to ask for their feedback as well, because sometimes we create things that we think clients want that they don't want. And sometimes we are misreading client information or input on or being triggered by. And if we simply ask a question is, tell me a little bit why this is so triggering for you. And they'll tell you and you'll go, oh shit, that's easy to fix. We were thinking it was that easy to fix.
I have a great story on that. You know, I was talking to some people one day, and this client got very upset and wanted to talk to the manager and wanted to talk to the practice owners because this associate veterinarian, and Deb, you might have told me this story, held her finger in the air.
That's me. Yep.
That's you. And so all she wanted to do was to listen to the chest, and the client was very chatty, and she held her finger up in the air to make her stop talking instead of asking politely, would you mind to just hold that thought just a minute, and I'm going to listen to its chest. And so the client was triggered by the finger because her grandmother, right, used to hold that finger up to make her be quiet. So we don't really know what triggers people, but we can listen hard. You know, I think we listen half-assed. We need to listen hard to people and watch their body language and learn to judge that. It comes from emotional intelligence. You know, sometimes I think about the things I did at 20 I would not do today because I have gained emotional intelligence over my life and know that does not work. So let's teach that early in the game, and so people don't have to have so many failures to learn to do these things. And then, you know, they just fine tune them. You know, what I think one of the things that is really important to think about in any business is that once you are good at things, then that now has become your baseline, and you always have to raise the bar. And so what we're doing here is, even if you're really good at what you do, we can raise the bar. We can start to think, how can I help? How can I be better? How can I anticipate the need of a client and think, what would you like? And how can I ask that client, what do you like? You know, what do you like? And let me provide that for you, because it's not about me.
We always talk about asking curious questions, because you might presume that everything that's happening is great between Rhonda and I, or Debbie and I, and every once in a while you should check in and say, how are things going? What's going on? And if they feel safe, because you've created that atmosphere, they'll say, well, I really hate it when this happens. Or if I wait 15 minutes, or if the vet comes in, he doesn't have eye contact, or whatever it is. And the CSR can share that with the practice to let them know, you know, Mrs. Smith really doesn't like the finger held up, or Mrs. Jones doesn't like when you don't come in and say good morning, you go straight to the dog. It just is a preference. And the CSR is the person on the front line who's going to get that little nuanced information that's going to make your life even better. So I can't believe we're out of time, but we are. Tell everybody where they can learn more about NAAVR.
So NAAVR.org. So that is our website. The forum is
NAAVR.
Yep, .org. Yeah, it's the North American Association.
Everyone. NAAVR.
Yeah, North American Association of Veterinary Receptionists.org. We invite you to go check it out. There's a little bit of information there. Sign up for the wait list. We're going to start our newsletters going out here pretty soon. But our big launch is actually going to be at Fetch. So that's where we're going to put it out to the world. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming. Debbie and Jill and I we've got a really fun mascot that is waiting in the wings to make their grand entrance. So it's going to be pretty incredible. We're looking forward to just seeing how this goes and supporting this industry in this way.
Well, Debbie and Rhonda, thank you so much. And until next time, why do pets matter? Because people like this are helping everyone have a better relationship with their pets and their pet service providers. I'm Deborah Hamilton. Thanks so much for coming. The Why Do Pets Matter podcast drops every Thursday and can be found on whichever platform you find your podcast. Subscribe now, invite your friends, and I cannot wait to have you join me in these conversations.